Softly spoken, had a slight speech impediment. Here was a loner.
Sutcliffe gravitated to his mother, who doted on him. By the time Sutcliffe entered school, he was ill-prepared to make friends with his classmates. In 1981, Peter's father, John Sutcliffe, was interviewed about his son's childhood.
He rather shunned the company of other boys because they were always seemed to be much too big for him. You could walk past the schoolyard during the play period, the afternoon, and he'd be stood in a corner by himself.
Most boys his age were obsessed with sports, with girls, but Sutcliffe showed little interest.
Peter Sutcliffe clearly wasn't an ebullient, charismatic, self-confident character, but neither was there an awful lot in his background to suggest that he was going to turn out to be a huge serial killer.
But Peter was a very quiet, almost timid boy, but very clever, very smart.
Fearing torment from older classmates, Sutcliffe often skipped school.
And I found out that he'd been coming home and coming back in through the front door, going upstairs, climbing into the underdrawing and spending the day up there on his own. Now, when I found out about this, I asked him what was wrong, and he told me. He didn't like that school. Why not? Well, they're always pushing me around.
At 15, Sutcliffe quit school and took a job as a gravedigger. For the first time, it became clear that behind his quiet facade lay a darker side.
He took an unusual and almost unhealthy interest in corpses, and he would have great enjoyment at breaking into an old grave and lifting up the skull that he would find inside, or playing tricks on his friends with bones and skulls.
His behavior became cruel and violent. It's been said that as a joke, Sutcliffe hit an elderly gravedigger on the head. Extremely shy and awkward around girls, Peter had never dated. That changed in 1966, when Sutcliffe met Sonia Zerma at a pub in Bradford, England. He was 20, she was the quiet 16-year-old daughter of Czechoslovakian immigrants.
There's no doubt that he fell in love with her, and there was a very strong bond there. She was cultured, she liked classical music, she spoke different languages.
Sonia pursued her interest in art and pottery at a nearby school, while Sutcliffe worked menial jobs. Their seemingly happy relationship was shattered in 1969, however, when Sutcliffe learned that Sonia had been unfaithful. Now his personality took a darker, more violent turn.
He began attacking women, defenseless women. And who were the most defenseless women? They were women who offered themselves to men for sexual purposes.
One evening in the fall of that year, Sutcliffe, for the first time, merged sexual desire with his anger towards women.
He placed a half brick in a sock and went off, stalked this woman and hit her about the head. He got away with it because in those days, if a prostitute made a complaint against a client, police would regard this as just virtually a domestic dispute.
Although his violent urges were building, he was always gentle with Sonia.
There is a fascinating paradox at the heart of Peter Sutcliffe, and that is that he was this horrendously a violent man towards women, and yet he never laid a glove on his wife.
1 month after his first attack, police found Sutcliffe's car idling in a Bradford neighborhood. He hid in the bushes, clutching a hammer. When discovered and questioned, Sutcliffe offered no explanation for why he had the hammer. The officer never suspected that this meek man had been stalking women that night. They merely charged him with going out, quote, equipped to steal. He was fined £25.
In a sense, those early crimes could almost be seen as haphazard possibilities that he stumbled on and he tried out and got away with.
His early run-ins with the law, however, forced him to stifle his violent urges. For 5 years, Peter Sutcliffe remained out of trouble. He got a good job as a truck driver, spending nights driving the roads of northern England. And despite Sonia's infidelity, the couple remained together. They were married in 1974 and moved in with her parents in Bradford, England.
Sonia, more or less, wore the trousers in the house, and Peter was actually quite willing to let her do so. And there may be a throwback to his own upbringing, where his mother was very dominated by an overbearing father who made her life a misery.
To their friends and co-workers, Peter and Sonia seemed to be leading normal lives. But in 1975, while Sonia was focused on saving money to buy a house, Peter Sutcliffe brutally killed a woman for the first time. On January 20th, 1976, he drove to the red light district in Chapelton in search of a victim.
On the question of red light districts, it tended to be located in the back streets, in the poorer areas where, most people wouldn't go.
At around 9 p.m., he invited Emily Jackson into his car.
She was heavily built and had brown hair. There was an overpowering smell of cheap perfume and sweat. This served all the more for me to hate this woman.
Sutcliffe would lure his victim usually out of a vehicle into the open.
After stabbing Jackson repeatedly, he returned home, although this time he wasn't filled with panic.
I had a feeling of satisfaction and justification for what I'd done.
Police had little to go on when they found Emily Jackson's body, but unknowingly, Sutcliffe had left one clue behind.
At the side of the body were some excellent footprints, and they were a type of very heavy industrial boot, and they gave us the size of footwear being worn.
Jackson's murder was similar to that of Wilma McCann just 3 months earlier. Police were concerned.
They knew that there was a man out there who was hating prostitutes and was stalking them and killing them.
But the police were still looking for a crazed killer, not a mild-mannered truck driver. Sutcliffe was free to kill again. He would soon earn the nickname, the Yorkshire Ripper. May 1976. 29-year-old Peter Sutcliffe had already killed 2 prostitutes in Yorkshire, England. His reign of terror was just getting started.
Killing prostitutes became an obsession with me, and I couldn't stop myself. It was like some sort of drug.
With each murder, his appetite for mayhem grew.
It doesn't require any thought or any circumstance. It's something that's inside that person. And it's inside to the point where it drives what these people do.
They were not really people that he was in any way relating to. They were simply a representation of some symbolic quality. They were women, they were street women, they were whores, or they were things he wanted to get rid of.
On the night of May 9th, Sutcliffe picked up another prostitute. He beat her over the head mercilessly and left her for dead. Miraculously, she survived. Even though the attack was similar to that of 2 earlier victims, police paid little notice to the woman's description of the assailant.
They tended to be biased against certain types of women, prostitutes, thinking that, well, she may have slept with 3 or 4 or 5 or a dozen men that day, so how would she be able to remember one particular one from all of those?
For months after the attack, Sutcliffe curbed his violent urges, living a quiet life with his wife Sonia and working his delivery route.